What's up guys, in today's video we're going to be dissecting a bunch of different comments about Blender, about hard surface modeling. I'm going to discuss why they're right, why they're wrong, why they're kinda right, kinda wrong, and I'm not going to go in here and attack anybody. I'm just going to explain to you based on objective fact why they're right or why they're wrong, okay? So hopefully this will kind of give you an idea of what to look out for and just a lot of common misconceptions that you're going to find in the Blender space. So let's just hop right into it, I guess. Before we continue, guys, I do want to mention that if you want to learn hard surface modeling very quickly, on average in 1 to 2 weeks, then check out our Hard Surface Accelerator program. We have had thousands of students go through this at this point, I think 3,000 or 4,000, and people are getting crazy results very quickly. This is not a course that's going to make you a master overnight, but you're going to be so far advanced compared to the people just getting started, or even people that are experienced, because we're showing you the right strategies and the right techniques, so that way you're not struggling with the workflows. You're more confident in your modeling. You know how to complete projects without giving up halfway through. This is going to solve a lot of bottlenecks that you guys are running into. So again, if you want to learn more about this program, I'll link it in the description. You can see everything that's inside. And again, we have a lot of student results here. We can get you the same ones in just under 2 weeks. I'm going to be looking at the screen here, not the camera, so that's why I'm looking away. So the first comment here from this guy, he was replying to a comment about learning Blender as a beginner. And he says, 3D is a complex subject, so like any complex subject, a structured approach to learning it is critical. I 100% agree with this. You do need a structured approach. You can't be hopping around. You need something very clear and streamlined. Now, the first thing he says, he had a bunch of different points here, but we don't have time to go through like every single one. So we're just going to do the first one. He says, do beginners tutorials. I cannot stress this enough. Not only will this save you a great deal of time and frustration, but probably from rage quitting as well. I do agree you should be doing beginners tutorials, but I don't necessarily agree that it's going to protect you from rage quitting, because there's lots of tutorials out there that are just overly confusing, or they're not even related to what you're trying to accomplish in Blender, and you're going to be fed, this misinformation or these confusing pieces of info that don't actually apply to what you're trying to do in Blender. So be very careful. Beginner tutorials are great. I mean, we have plenty of beginner tutorials, but you also want to make sure you're focusing on a tutorial that's related to what you're trying to accomplish. Don't watch a sculpting video if you're trying to be like an engineer, you know what I mean? And he also says, make notes as you go, particularly of hotkeys. You don't really need to note down hotkeys. You can. You're going to get the muscle memory very quickly, just the more you practice. And he says, stop and go back as often as you need to get it right. 100%, you should be rewatching tutorials, rewatching clips, making sure you actually understand the information being presented. He says this is the falling off phase of learning. Actually, I fully agree with this as well. This is where a lot of people are going to drop off. If you can just get over that initial hurdle, it's going to be so much better. And it's going to be frustrating as well, like you said, but keep it going. So this is just like a good introduction to this video, I think. This guy is pretty much on point. Just a few things I disagree with. All right, this is another really good one, and I think it needs to be discussed in this video because it's an issue that I struggle with, and pretty much all of you, it's not even like 99%, it's 100% of people struggle with this for sure. And this comment is, why is it so hard to get started with learning Blender? And he says, for years, I've wanted to start learning Blender, and every time I try, I'm instantly demotivated when I face the slightest setback. I daily daydream and fantasize about all the things I want to create with Blender, and the closer I get to getting back home from work, the less motivated I become. So this stems, I had a very similar issue when I was learning, and to a certain extent, I still have a, kind of a similar issue. This stems from too much dopamine. You need to be deriving your dopamine from work. There's no way around it. Most people go to work, or they hate their jobs, or they need an escape, and they have to derive dopamine as that escape mechanism. If you can learn to derive your dopamine from actually working, actually accomplishing a task, doing difficult things, that's how you get past this roadblock. Most of you guys, and again, I'm not an exception here, I'm just making a point. Most of you guys are escaping with, free dopamine, Instagram scrolling, those nicotine vapes. I see people, vaping all the time. That's an instant dopamine hit, and it's terrible for your health, I'm sure. Alcohol every other day, junk food, not going to the gym, not taking care of your health. You get 5 minutes into your work, your phone, you get a notification, boom, dopamine hit. Somebody likes your post, boom, dopamine hit. This is where it stems from. If you could derive dopamine from doing the hard work, this will be very easy. This is why we, built up our brand over 5 years, because now most of my dopamine comes from working. It comes from going to the gym and taking care of myself. If you go back to 4 or 5 years ago in my tutorials, I look different. I sound different. That's back when I was addicted to dopamine. It's that simple. If you can remove those dopamine sources, the really destructive ones, from your life, actually not even from your life, just when you're working, you're going to make so much more progress, because now you don't have, dopamine next to you to rely on. Put your phone on silent, lock yourself in your room, get the work done. It's going to be difficult at first, but as the weeks go by, you're training yourself to get the dopamine from the work. Because what else are you going to do? Stare at the paint on the wall? Like, there's nothing else you can get the dopamine from, so it has to come from your work. So most of you guys, if you're feeling this way, it's a dopamine issue. I don't know what else it could possibly be, because you'll enjoy work if you don't get dopamine from anywhere else. And actually, he mentions that in the second part of this comment. He says, I know that a big factor is my need for constant dopamine through social media and digital entertainment have fucked up my brain, but it feels like a whole other level when it comes to Blender. I didn't even read this part till just now. What did I tell you? It's a dopamine issue. You guys need to, I'm not going to say it again, I keep repeating myself, but you need to get your dopamine from the work you're doing. Cut out all the free dopamine sources. It's that simple. And if you're unwilling to do that, expect to keep running into these issues, because that's the solution. And again, I struggle with this to a certain extent. The other day, I was doing some market research for a new product. It was so incredibly boring. I did not want to do it. And I had my phone next to me, and every 10 minutes, I was like scrolling through Instagram. Again, it's an issue that we all have, but you need to avoid it as much as you possibly can. All right, the next one here is just about making money with Blender. Guys, I get these comments all the time. I'm sure many of you, some of you are hobbyists and don't really care about the money. Some of you want to make money with Blender, and some of you want a bit of both. You want to kind of do work you enjoy and just make enough money to, take care of yourself, right? And this is a very common question, and a lot of people are trying to do the same thing, so you need to stand out in a way. Anyways, the question here is, I'm currently learning Blender, and I'm just curious if anybody is earning money with it, and if so, how did you start? I currently have created a Fiverr gig and heard that it's a good idea to offer 3D modeling services to e-commerce businesses. I actually mentioned this in one of our emails like a few weeks ago. I wonder if he's on our list. I don't know. But I did not have any clients, a bit anxious, not sure how to package the deliverables. First of all, guys, do not do Fiverr or any of these cheap freelancing services. It is a race to the bottom. Everybody else is trying to do the same thing, and most of these guys have mediocre skills. Unless you're the most expensive guy on the market, you're just going to be like biting at ankles, like for anything you can get. You don't want to be, on these cheap platforms undervaluing your work. You're going to end up working for a shitty client that you're working 80 hours a week, making $2 an hour. Don't do these cheap services. And if you are, charge high-end prices. When I go and outsource my work, I look for the expensive guy, because I know the cheap guy is going to do a shit job and it's just going to be a headache. It's a race to the bottom, basically. So avoid the Fiverr stuff. Just find a particular bottleneck in an industry and solve that problem. For example, our MaterialWorks product, we released this a bit over a year ago. There is a huge gap in the hard surface modeling niche. I needed realistic hard surface textures for my models. I did. So there wasn't a solution out there that was kind of custom tailored to what I needed. So we went out, we created it, and we marketed it, and we sold it. What you want to do is find a bottleneck in an area that you can leverage Blender to solve. The e-commerce example he mentioned here, I mentioned this in an email a few weeks ago. A good friend of mine, he travels all over the world. To be fair, he lives in cheap countries, but he enjoys it. What he did was he learned Blender. I don't know, it took him a year or two. And now what he does is he creates these ads. He creates these renders for different e-commerce products. So for example, I don't know if this is actually what he's done, but just as an example, say you have a brand selling supplements. He would create the render for the supplement. And again, like a supplement bottle is a cylinder. It's a very basic thing to model. He just has to learn how to render it, do the texturing. It's very easy to learn. And what he would do with that, he'd basically create the ad, and it would take him an hour or two to create it. He knew how to use Blender. He'd like Photoshop it, put these benefit driven bullet points, and his clients would pay him, lots and lots of money. He's making over 6 figures doing this, and he's not working that much because he's not attaching his time to the money he's making there. And he's found a bottleneck and a service that people need. It's like e-commerce brands, guys, are going to spend money on ads so they don't have to make it. Unless they're like a big brand, they might have like an in-house team, but you can leverage that, right? That's a bottleneck in an industry that you can use, or you can leverage Blender to solve. That's kind of what you want to go for. You don't want to charge cheap, you want to charge expensive. And if you feel uncomfortable doing that, then maybe take on a few clients to build that confidence first. So that's how I'd recommend making money with Blender, not doing any of those BS Fiverr gigs because everybody else is doing the same thing and they're not that good. So yeah. All right, let's see what else we have here. All right, this guy says that a hard surface artist must have good skills in texture maps, baking, retopology, and UV mapping. No, that's not true. You see, what a lot of people do, like this is what confuses a lot of beginners. They read these posts and there's no context behind them, and they get confused. This is completely false because he didn't provide any context. If this guy says, as a game artist, as a game asset designer, then he'd have some context here. But he's saying a hard surface artist must know how to texture, bake, do UV mapping. That's false. A hard surface artist could be a million different things. You could be an engineer, you could be doing 3D printing, you could be doing concept art, creating ads, you could be a game designer, and then his point would be true. But what these guys do is they lay out these blanket statements with no experience whatsoever, and this just confuses people. It's like the people preaching quad topology with no context behind it. It just confuses people. So this guy is completely wrong. If he provided some context, he would probably be right. But unfortunately he didn't, and this is just what confuses beginners, and we see this all the time. So you guys need to be very, very careful about the comments you're reading and the info you're consuming. Most of these guys have no clue what they're talking about. So that's false. Here's another comment. This is just another reply about, how to learn Blender, how to learn hard surface modeling. This guy says, make things that you like and see every day. Try to make furniture from your house. Try to make them with proper loops. That's fine. If you're trying to, practice topology, nothing wrong with that. But it just gets worse and worse, the rest of this comment. This guy says the best way is to use subdiv modeling using subdivision surface. No, that's false. It depends what you're trying to accomplish. Again, no context was provided here. It's annoying. And then he says only use low poly models with bevels if high poly is undesirable. I don't even know what this means. Again, there's no context here at all. This is terrible advice. Only use low poly models with bevels if high poly is undesirable. He would be right if he's talking about like a mid-poly bevel workflow for game assets. Yeah, it's correct. But again, he's providing no context. This doesn't make any sense at all. And then the worst part is he says, I suggest not using add-ons until you get good without add-ons. This is a very common belief and I fully disagree with it. You are going to learn the native Blender tools even more by using add-ons. The reason is when you run into a problem, you're going to be forced to research the solution. And that's going to lead you to understanding the native tools in Blender a lot more. I fully disagree with this. All right, let's go to the next one. Guys, we got a bit of drama coming here. I hope you're ready for it. Okay, this one's gonna be funny. This guy is talking shit, so we'll have a bit of drama for this video. This guy's talking about our stuff. He said, I bought their hard surface accelerator. Turns out it teaches a lot of harmful habits, such as using booleans for high poly models and stuff about n-gons. What does this even mean? Stuff about n-gons. That's his argument for our product. That's his argument. Stuff about n-gons. What about n-gons? N-gons are fantastic. I use them all the time. And he also says booleans for high poly models. I don't know what booleans and high poly models have to do with anything. It's completely irrelevant here. This makes no sense. Again, this is a great example of somebody who wants to sound intelligent, who wants to sound like he knows what he's talking about, but all he's doing is harming the reader. He's confusing people. He's sounding, to a beginner, he's sounding intelligent, but to, somebody who's been using Blender for a while, this just makes no sense at all. So this is just a fluff comment basically. And then we have Lieutenant Dan's ice cream. Let's see what Lieutenant Dan has to say about our stuff as well. I had to inject a bit of drama in this video. It'll make it more fun. He said, I also stopped watching them because of this reason. I don't know what the context was here. They rely way too much on their own paid add-ons too. I assume he's talking about Hardops and Boxcutter. Those are not our add-ons. We are not the creators. I don't know why people continue to believe this. Yes, we use them in our videos. We did not create them, all right? And they're great add-ons, by the way. I'm not going to apologize for using them. They save me lots and lots of time. If you want to go, spend thousands of hours to save 40 bucks, go ahead and do that. I don't want that low intelligence around the videos. He talks about overall trash techniques that will hurt you down the road, and they don't really show you how to problem solve. Well, this is a complete lie. Most of my videos that I started this channel with were all about problem solving. I'm going to put a bunch of screenshots on the screen right now. These are all tutorials related to problem solving. This is a blatant lie. Again, these people do no research. They talk shit, and they just sound stupid when you actually disprove them. Again, plenty of my videos show you guys how to problem solve stuff in Blender. That's actually how I started my channel, was with problem solving videos. So this is just a complete BS comment, but what are you gonna do? It's the internet. And what else do we have here? This is just another general comment. Practice a lot, buy the Hardops and Boxcutter extensions. I fully agree with this. A lot of people get annoyed that we use paid tools. Guys, I look at it as a math equation. If I can spend $38 and save hundreds, if not thousands of hours, by not doing that, I would be valuing my time at pennies on the hour. It's stupid. Like, you're better off just going and doing some job to actually afford that for the time you're gonna save. It's that simple. It's a math equation. It's not about promoting something. It's not about, selling something. It's about being smart. How much time are you gonna save by using these tools? And if you don't wanna use them, that's fine, because plenty of other people are gonna use them. They're just gonna, be better than you. It's that simple. Use the right tools for the job. They don't have to be ours. I don't care. Find a tool that you like that's gonna save you time. Very simple. All right, we got another one here about just what we're teaching, and I'm gonna explain to you why it's completely false. He says, I think their content is decent for learning how to properly use some of the staple hard surface add-ons. I appreciate that, but they tend to sell a pipe dream that topology and other technical requirements don't matter in a professional world, which is BS, especially for the games industry. Well, oftentimes they don't matter. Again, this is another example of somebody who provides zero context. Topology and these other technical requirements don't matter by definition if you're a concept artist, for example. You're just creating a render. We don't care about the topology. If you're doing 3D printing, you just need to make sure the object is manifold. Again, topology does not matter in this case. If you're just going for a render, topology does not matter. If you're trying to create a static game asset, you can use Ngons. It's not a problem. Again, it is contextual. People like to, throw out these blanket statements with no context at all, and it just confuses people. Now, this comment just gets worse, guys, and this is just terrible advice. I don't mind if you don't like our stuff. I don't mind if you hate us. I don't mind criticism. I don't care. I'm used to it. What does bother me is just blatant lies and misinformation that just confuses people, because I want you guys to learn. I want you guys to get good information, not blanket statements like these guys like to use. He says later on in here that they don't seem to have the ability or interest to adapt to an art style other than their own. He's actually correct here. I don't want to adapt to an art style other than my own. You as a 3D artist want to have your own unique style, because what that's going to do is it's going to communicate your work to people. People nowadays, when they see our stuff online, they know it's us because we have our own unique style. This is how we've made money freelancing. This is how we get people reaching out to us for work, because we have a unique style. I don't want to, adapt to somebody else's art style. This is stupid advice. This is terrible advice. You do not want to do that, because then you look like everybody else. When I look at some of these, advanced hard surface artists like Aiden Garaziu, Paul Chadison, however you pronounce it. These guys have a very, very unique art style. When I look at their work, I know immediately who made it. You do not want to be not unique. You want to have your own unique style and your own unique ways of doing things. This guy is completely off here. This is just very, very stupid advice. I would not recommend that. I'm not sure what else we have here. A bit of good info, a bit of bad info. There were hundreds, if not thousands of different posts and comments I could have went through, but what are we at now? 20, 30 minutes in the video. I don't want this to go on too long. If you guys want more videos like this, let me know down below. I'm happy to do more of these. I'm happy to dissect, bad, good comments just to help you guys out. And again, it's very important that you follow comments based on context. A lot of people throw out these blanket statements. They don't give you any context, and it just confuses people, and you just get terrible advice overall. We do not do this in our videos. When I present something, it's for a particular workflow. So in some cases, we use bad topology. Some cases we use quads. It depends what we're trying to do. It's completely contextual based on your goals. So I'm going to end the video here. And again, guys, if you're feeling, stuck learning Blender, feeling stuck learning hard surface modeling, your confidence is low, your designs suck, whatever it is, we can fix this problem for you very, very quickly. We've done it for hundreds and hundreds of students by now in our Hard Surface Accelerator program. You don't have to buy it. At least go to the link in the description, see what it's about, see if this is useful for you. Again, we can get you up to speed with hard surface modeling in 1 to 2 weeks, very, very quickly. You're just gonna skip the line and get the right information right off the bat. So again, if you want to learn more about that program, I'll link it in the description below, and you can just take a look at the video, take a look at the page, see what it's all about. Other than that, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.